The views and opinions on the Craig L. Hayes Show do not necessarily reflect those of Westgate Resorts, ownership, or management. And now, on with the show.
Extra, extra, read all about it. Get your copies while they last. Stop the presses.
And now for something completely different.
Are you ready for a little truth? Are we not entertained? Wisdom is the proper use of knowledge and experience. There are no safe spaces here. The truth shall make you free. It's showtime! So you want the truth, but can you handle the truth? Well, here's another fine mess you've gotten us into. Now that's entertainment. Enlighten me a little. What you say is quite logical. And what did we learn? Prepare yourself for a little sensory overload. I came here for the truth. 7 years ago. Stand by the roll show intro. Roll show intro in 3, 2, 1, go.
This is the Craig L. Hayes Show.
Hello, America, family, friends, and listeners all around this planet we call home. This is the Craig L. Hayes Show. I am Craig L. Hayes. Welcome to the show. We are doing on this lovely day here, June 2nd, 2025. We are broadcasting from the Westgate Resort in Las Vegas from Elvis Presley's dressing room from way back then. The nostalgia of this show is just incredible. Pat ourselves on the back a little there. Want to thank Cammie Christensen. She's the president of the hotel for allowing me to do this show from this venue, and appreciate her so very much. Known her for like 20 some years. Dawn Rawls, she's the vice president of entertainment. Thank you, Dawn. Appreciate you encouraging and keeping this thing going too. And John Pierce, technical director for the property, for all contributing and allowing me to do this show and talk about showbiz and keep it alive and keeping the history, especially of this room. A lot of the people we interview have worked in this room, and we want to keep the history of this room alive in show business. So today's guest is someone I've known, I don't even remember how long. Maybe he'll remember. I think it's at least around 30-something years, somewhere in that vicinity. But he's going to talk about his life in show business and all the things he's done. He's worked in this room too. He used to do some lighting in this room. He used to be the head electrician running all the pretty lights. As people in the audience said, "Oh, the lights are so pretty." So we're going to talk to him. His name is Paul Chadwick. And Paul, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Craig.
Good to have you here. You're one of the guys I've been wanting to get in here for a while, and got Jerry finally to find a time period for him. You know, these guys that are retired, getting them to come in and do stuff, they act like they're so busy. They're retired. How hard is that? Serious. I got to give Jerry a bad time even on this episode. So anyways, folks, first we're going to talk a little bit about where Paul came from, how he eventually got to Las Vegas, and what got him into show business. So, Paul, if you got a little bit to say, which I hope you have a lot to say because I don't want to talk this whole show. Let's hear your story. Let's hear a little bit about your early days when you were a youth and then moved, and finally how you got here to Las Vegas.
I got here in 1990. I was out of Fort Worth for about 3 years or so. I did a bunch of theater in Fort Worth, but it didn't really pay the bill, so I was working in the construction business. And the project that I was on, pretty much it finished up, and we had turned it over to the client, or we're in the process of turning it over to the client. And my boss, she was hired out here on a contract with the Department of Energy, and they needed her expertise. And when they asked her, what's it going to take to bring you out here? She said, I want to bring 2 people. I happen to be one of those 2 people. So that's how I got out here. I got moved out here for the job. I'd never been to Vegas before. This was as far west as I had ever been at the time. And that was back in 1990. So we moved out here, and I got involved. My wife is an actress. She's a equity actress, stage manager, or was equity. She's retired now, but she was equity actress in that. And she went to a class or a seminar and met some people, and they were doing a impromptu, like a murder mystery kind of thing, like they used to do at or still do at some of the restaurants and that in town, where it's all improvisational with a kind of an outline of a plot involving the audience while they're eating and that kind of thing. And she hooked up with them and started working. And they also, the group that she, the folks that she met and that got her involved were also heavily involved with Actors Repertory Theater. I think one of the ladies that she met was actually the treasurer. So we got pulled into Actors Rep, and their technical expertise at that point was limited to Rob Gubbins, who some people may recall. And I showed up at his house where we were building the set for the first show, the first performance that was done at that time at the Summerlin Performing Arts Center, Summerlin Library and Performing Arts Center. So we opened that space there, I believe. And I believe that first show was the musical Fiddler on the Roof. And so I showed up in my truck with my tools at his house, and they're laid out on his backyard with set pieces and everything else. And we commenced to painting and building and everything else. Had some high school kids there and helping us and that kind of thing, and put up a show. And that was that was the end of my free time. I was in the Actors Rep now for quite some years. Even got to the point where they had me on the board of directors, and I was president of Actors Rep for a year or two. That organization doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately. But met a lot of fine people with that, and of course, certainly Rob was one of them. And I was able to bring Rob into the IA here, the union here. We brought him in as an assistant pyrotechnician at Splash when Splash 2 opened back in '94, I think, maybe something like that.
Yeah, it would have been around. I left.
Whenever you started here.
I left August of '94, and I think shortly after that, you guys started changing the room around.
Yeah, so it must have been like probably '95 when Kutash opened.
Probably early '95. Yeah.
But anyway, there were 2 of us that were in Pyro, Mike Criswell, who was the head, and myself. And we obviously got really tired of working 7 days a week, all the shows. So I suggested we bring Rob in, and he came on board with us, and then there was the 3 of us. I worked at Splash for, 15 years anyway. Left for a little bit because it started it started getting a little funny when Kutash sold it to Rickless. Then things changed a bit, and I got an offer to take up the head pyro position at the Luxor for what the heck was his last name? It was a show that his first name was Dick. I can't remember his last name. Maybe you remember his name. Begins with an F, I think. Anyway, he was a big producer and did some shows.
Yeah.
He did the show Imagine at the Luxor, and that show opened the Luxor Theater. So he did Imagine, and I came on board as head pyro. I was there for I did the install, and I was there for probably, maybe a year or 2. And I just got really, really tired of it, I guess. It was all, as far as a pyro goes, it was all powder, and it was all in the first act. And the setup time was brutal. We were in there a good 4 hours prior to the show, And then, of course, we ran 2 shows. So you built for 2 shows, and then you had the half hour before you had to get off the stage for the second show to get everything set for the second show. And after Act 1, I mean, I had to stay around till the end of the show, but I did really nothing to do in Act 2, so that got kind of boring.
You know, some people would go, so you got to just hang out and get paid? So it's brutal.
Yeah,
You know,
sitting there, I hate sitting doing nothing. I hate it.
Yeah, exactly. Just,
Yeah.
you know, I love shows that you had cues every minute or two. You had to go move something, do something.
Yeah, absolutely.
But these ones that you sit there and go do this, and then go sit over there for a half hour. And you're like, oh, slow death.
Yep, absolutely. But so they came calling for me. Splash came calling for me and asked me if I would come back to work over there, and I told them sure, and told them they had to give me a raise over what I had been getting. So they agreed to do that and brought my pay up, and we did a little negotiation, and I ended up going back to work at Splash, and I was there till not quite the bitter end, but pretty close to the bitter end, where it got really, really, really bad over there as the show started to fail and the money started running out and that. So after what was it, 20 years or 25 years, they finally closed that show. But yeah, it was a little agonizing there towards the end. But left there and went to. I got two job offers. One was to, I don't know if you knew this, you probably did. One was to take over technical director here. Who was the Eric DeRichards was the.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Eric was the entertainment director, manager, whatever, and he was trying to fill the technical director
That's
spot.
right. That's right. Okay, now I do. Thanks for the reminder. Yeah, I'm trying, because Tony Tauber actually took the job.
Took the job, exactly, which is kind of funny because Tony has been or was at that time was the lighting designer for Tournament of Kings. My second job offer, which had absolutely nothing to do with Tony, my second job offer was for as head electric for Tournament of Kings. and I took the head electric job at Tournament of Kings because, kind of piggybacking on what we just talked about, I knew that the TD job was really a desk job, a paperwork, budgeting, scheduling, and I wouldn't be able to play around with all the wonderful toys that we have here in the theater.
Yeah.
So that was the overarching reason that I took the job at the Excalibur. And I saw Tony before he came here because I took that job, and they brought Tony in to kind of give me a little lay of the land as far as his plot goes and what he had done and what he wanted to see as the lighting designer. And he was in town to interview for the TD job here.
Oh, wow.
So we chuckled a little bit about that, which he, of course, eventually got. And it was probably 2 years later, maybe, where he and someone was with him. Tony and it might have been Don Toto, it might have been somebody else, but he came knocking on my door and asked me if I'd come in and take over from Mike Rankin for the head job here.
For the moving light operator.
Yeah. And of course, at that point, being still somewhat immature and young, I was still enthralled with toys and new things, and the Hilton had the newest. So I made the jump, got away from the old I-beams and Cyberlights that I was struggling with on a daily basis at the Excalibur, and made the jump over here. I think I was here for about 3 years.
Yeah, you were here a while.
Yeah, I was here about 3 years or so. I had the responsibility for operating, programming when it was required, and taking care of all the movers that were used, as well as the video.
Yeah, you were here, and then when you left,
Broadling
Broadling came in, and and then Don left, and then it was just that's when they consolidated, moving, fixed everything into one console, and that was that.
Yeah.
So
Yep. Yep. Yep.
that's right. Thanks for the reminder. Yeah.
Yeah. That goes back a few years.
Yeah, I've seen so many head electrics and head audio guys come and go through the place over 30 years.
Yeah, I bet.
You know, it's like, well, I'm still here. You know, oh, another head electric. Oh, another head audio. Oh, good. You know, I don't know why that is, but that just seemed to happen. But
Yeah, you know, sometimes this was a fun job for me. It was, but at the time, I had been for quite a few years, even when I was at Splash, so long before coming here, I was doing 2 full-time gigs. And I had begun to realize while I was here that I was at a point where I wasn't being very successful at any of them, whether it was here or whether it was at the other gig. And so I got a job offer from Mark Fetto, who had just taken over from Verilight. He'd left Verilight Las Vegas and had just taken over as the COO for Morpheus Lights here in town.
all right.
And he offered me a production manager slot. And I said, well, you know, I have these 2 jobs, and I'm not sure that you could match what I need. And I gave him that challenge, and he met it. And so I ended up leaving here, coming in just primarily for relief work when it was necessary, when somebody was off, and that I could make myself available. And was his production manager, running the shop operations, loading the gear out, checking it out, maintaining it, doing a lot of production electrician work for shows that we would rent out, that kind of thing. I did that for a couple of years, and then I got another call. These things always, I sound like I'm just sitting around waiting for people to knock on my door, and it doesn't really happen that way. It's just, I feel like I'm probably, oh well, there's always Chadwick. We could see if he can come in and do the work.
Yeah, I don't think that's how it is with you. And, you know, that's okay. Nice being humble, but yeah, you're very talented and you're very good to work with.
Well, thank you. But I got an offer from a plea from an old friend who happened to be working for. He was the manager for the lighting department for Cirque du Soleil in the resident show division. So they had established at that point a department. He had been on several shows for Cirque. And at that point, they had established, newly created a department that he was managing, which was responsible for maintenance and load-in and production across the entire resident show division here in Vegas. And he and I had known each other for years. Shortly after I moved in here, we had met through another avenue, and he reached out to me and said, "Hey, we need to have an operations technical director here at the Chris Angel show." So again, enthralled by the glamour of Cirque du Soleil, I just said, "Okay, I'm gonna check that out. I'm gonna try it." And so they hired me on as operations TD for Chris Angel, and I got there. It hadn't opened yet; it was still in rehearsal, but they were nearing opening. I think I was there for maybe 6 months, and then they did their soft opening while I was there. The OTD who they had was a guy who had his history had been Lion King with Disney, and Disney offered him a job, kind of like get his old job back, but with expanded responsibilities and that kind of thing, and he ended up taking that. And so they were scrambling because, of course, they didn't have anybody, and it was in the middle of rehearsal, and they were getting close to opening. So that's how I took that job. And you get into these things, and you quickly discover that this is not what I signed up for, or this is not what I thought I signed up for.
Yeah.
And that was the case with that show. So when we parted company, it was one of the, I would say that it was cause for me as far as to celebrate. I had gotten out from under that, and it was like the weight of the world was off my shoulders, when I walked out for the last time. And then I went on the bounce for a while. Went back in as head electric at Tournament of Kings for a little bit. Did a lot of relief work over there while I was bouncing around. Did a lot of bouncing in and out of Morpheus lights and people and friends that I knew. Trying to remember what I did after that. I know. I think that one thing led into another. I did some overseas work and got more and more of that. And I did, but I also got from Morpheus a stint on the lighting crew for Bruce Springsteen. So I went on the road with Springsteen for a season. And while I was on the road, Base Entertainment called me up and asked me if I'd come over and be the production electrician and head electrician for Rock of Ages, which they were opening up in the Venetian. I had been working for them. A lot of my relief work was swinging into Phantom of the Opera. So that was how that connection was made. Matter of fact, I was the guy who told them, because I had been swinging in over there, but a lot of the guys that were doing effects work and some lighting work, we'd known each other for a while. The pyro community in town at that point was pretty small, so we all knew each other pretty well. But they needed a head carpenter, and they asked me, "Hey, you know anybody?" And so I gave them Glenn Snyder's name and number, and they hired him on board. So that's where we first met in Splash. That's how I knew him. And but yeah, so we ran into each other again with Phantom, and he put me on not just effects. I did pyro, I did automation, I did fly, I did the rail with Mike Wilson when Mike was up there, and with Rob Parsons when Rob was the head flyman up there. That's somebody you should see about getting on the shows.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a good name. Good name.
But yeah, I can't think. So where was I? Yeah, I lost track.
Well, you were at Bruce Springsteen stuff. You were doing
Springsteen. So they called me in and asked me if I'd take over production electrician and head for Rock of Ages. There was an actual production electrician that they brought in from New York, and I kind of, when he left after we did the install, I kind of took over from him. He was a great person to have as a production electrician. I learned a lot from him. But that was a straight out Broadway import. I think there had been, I don't know, seems like there were 7 other Rock of Ages around the world, and the same design team, pretty much bounced from place to place.
Yeah, it had a run there for a while.
We did
the movie, the movie was out. It was over at Venetian. It was here. It was all over the place. So.
Yeah, we did a good 6 years in Vegas with it.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any still running, but it had its time.
Rock, yeah, I don't know.
It did pretty good too. So.
I think our set, when we loaded out, Base sold the set. They bought the set from an Australian tour. And then 6 years later, they sold it back to the same Australian tour. I guess they were going to remount it, take it around Australia.
Oh.
Yeah, so everything came in from Australia to rewire everything, put it into our voltage so it'd work. And they got to take out what I did and put theirs back.
Yeah, the 240 didn't quite work for it.
That's right.
Plugs are different. All the stuff is different down there. Light bulbs, everything.
Everything.
Yes, everything's different. Yeah, I used to live in Australia. Totally different. Everything's different down there. Well, good. So, what we'll do is we'll end this episode right here. We've already been like 25, almost 30 minutes. Hard to believe, but
Yeah.
it goes through quick. Then we're going to go back in time a little bit. We'll just talk a little bit more about some of the places and some of the things you worked and stuff. You gave a great overview, and now we'll go and do a little dissecting and get in and talk a little bit more about your experiences and the shows you did and where you worked, and some stories, if you anything you can remember on bits and pieces here and there, and talk about the things that makes this business so interesting, especially behind the scenes. And that's what the point of this whole show is talk about the behind the scenes. So until then, we're going to take just a couple minute break, a water break, and then we're going to come back for another episode and do some more. So until then, Talbot, take it away.
This is the Craig L. Hayes Show.